What is up? What's happening, everybody? Welcome back to Blood Splatter Chatter as we are continuing our summer abroad coverage. We're doing 8 foreign horror films in 6 weeks. And tonight we are talking about one of the biggest of them all, Italy's Suspiria from 1977. Super excited. And joining me is the man that introduced me to not just Suspiria, but not just Dario Argento, but Italian horror in general. My brother from Pop Culture Philosophers. What up, Robbie?
What's up, dude? Pop, pop, boom. A station, everybody. Happy to be here. I don't care how many times I have to cover this movie. If somebody's reviewing this movie, I better be there. I'm telling you. I'm telling you.
I love that you say that because honestly, I was like, oh, Robbie, I did not think you'd want to do it. I'm like, he's done this twice. He's probably watched it 100 times. But you're like, I'm fucking there. I was like, I'm excited.
Any excuse to talk Suspiria, like my favorite movie of all time, get the fuck out of here. This, Dazed and Confused, Citizen Kane, I'll always be there for.
Oh, for some reason, I thought you were making a joke. I thought you were saying Days of Thunder. I thought you were doing a Cruz Choice joke.
That's the bomb of Cruz Choice.
So for people that are just tuning in that aren't familiar with the channel, you won't know. But for longtime viewers of Pop Culture Philosophers, Dylan's Horror Show, and Blood Splatter Chatter, you may know. Like Robbie just said, this is his favorite horror movie of all time. Phable and Steph, they've been introduced to a little bit of Italian horror here and there. But really, you guys have not had any of the best Italian horror, in my opinion. And this one is probably the best of the best, the top of the pile. So I'm super curious to find out what Link and Phable think of this one. But Link, my brother, what up? Welcome back.
I got like two. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. See, I don't think it's coming through the mic. Do I sound better now?
You sound great. Why, are you having like some weird feedback or something?
No. So when I hit the mute on the mic, it mutes the mic, but I guess you can still hear me through like.
Yes. Yeah, I learned that the hard way. Yeah.
But what's up? Happy to be here. Yeah. I will say I feel like I know Phable said this once before, like when we were having issues with certain Italian films in the past, why not introduce us to this first?
Oh, see, I already like where you're going with that. Well, I mean, I get it because it's one that I was trying to hang on to for a while too. But when we did Summer Abroad, I'm like, fuck it. If we're doing Summer Abroad, we're talking foreign horror. I'm doing Suspiria because this is the one. Last week I said Ring is kind of the foreign horror movie that opened up Hollywood's eyes to what's going on overseas. This is the movie that opened up my eyes to what's going on overseas, like pretty recently, like just a few years ago. But Phable, this is indeed a first time watch for you too, right, brother?
Yes, sir. First time.
Hell yeah, man. And first, welcome back. It's been a few weeks. You're looking good. It's good to have you back, brother.
Oh yeah, man. It's good to be back, man. I miss it. I miss streaming with you guys. I miss all of the stuff that we do. But times are tough. Gotta do what I gotta do. But any chance I get, I'm gonna try to jump in.
Hell yeah, brother. Hell yeah. What up to the chat real quick? Inja, Allison, Troy up in here. I appreciate you guys popping in the early goings. You guys are the absolute best. All right. So Dario Argento, Suspiria. As I said, just got introduced to the dude a few years ago, but I've went down like a pretty big rabbit hole in the last few years. Watched the majority of his films. And there's pretty much two eras of Argento's films. There's pre-Suspiria and post-Suspiria. And leading up to this, his bread and butter were these Italian giallo films, which are pretty much these murder mysteries. And then this is his first like venture into flat out horror. And honestly, this is probably my fourth time watching it. Each time I enjoy the movie a little bit more. Last night when I watched it was like the scariest that I've ever found it for whatever reason. I threw it on today during the day, just like in the background watching it. And it's not as effective. It's definitely a movie you want to watch. Fucking volume cranked, lights off at night, maybe a little bit, you know what I mean? Just a little bit will help you just a little bit. But I think this is my favorite film of his. A lot of people, Deep Red is their favorite. That's his best giallo work. But Robbie, my man, as we're in Italy for Summer Abroad, I was telling you beforehand, I want you to kind of fill in the world a little bit on just like the different areas of Italian horror. There's the giallo, as I mentioned. There's a bunch of great zombie movies. There's a bunch of cannibal movies, which I kind of try to stay away from. Accidentally watched one once. I probably won't dip my toes back in there anytime soon. And then there's I don't know. There's one other thing that I forget what I'm saying. But since you are the man that introduced me to Italian horror, why don't you expand on that a little bit, my brother?
Well, I mean, I guess a lot of people would say The Godfather. What, Mario Bava? Probably, right? A lot of like mystery stuff like that. And he's kind of like the father of Italian horror and Italian giallo, right?
Right.
Pinto came in with Bird with Crystal Plumage. And, you know, like you said, giallos, they're named giallos because that's the Italian word for yellow, right? And they kind of replicate these like almost like what we would call crime dime store novels, right? These like cheap, sleazy, quick and easy murder mysteries, right? And like it's always accompanied with like usually a razor blade or a switchblade or something like that. Leather, like leather is a part of it. Leather gloves, leather
Right.
so it's a textural thing, and they're all stylistic, and they all have a lot of gore and a lot of sex. And a lot of people say it's the precursor to the American slasher film, and I'm one of those people.
Definitely.
Then you had Argento worked with George A. Romero to do Zombie, the original Zombie, which is the European version of Dawn of the Dead, which has got more of the goblin score and it's a little bit creepier, right? So then you got Lucio Fulci, who was also doing giallo films. He jumps in and does a unofficial sequel to that movie called Zombie 2, which we in America call Zombie. We know we love that movie, and it spawned a whole bunch of zombie Italian films, which to me, they progress, get less and less worth it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Eventually lead to stuff like, what was it, Buried Alive or whatever? What
Close enough. We won't say the actual title on this channel
right now. But you know, you get to that kind of stuff. But then Argento, this was his first supernatural horror film, right? And he also did Phenomena and some other things like that. Now he did return to giallo throughout some of the later parts of his career to a lesser successful degree for certain. But he even has a movie called Giallo. Tenebrae, by the way, is absolutely amazing. That's the one he does after Inferno. So yeah, Inferno. He eventually encapsulates the Mother of the Three Mothers trilogy with Mother of Tears. But then there's this like other thing that happens in 80s Italian horror where you hit the VHS market and these movies are really easy to kind of produce. Then you have like people like Lamberto Bava, who's like taking everything that came before and ramping up the crazy weirdness of it. And you get movies like Delirium, you get movies like Demons, and it just goes crazy. And then it kind of dies out after that. But definitely Italian horror, Mario Bava, Lucio Fulci, Dario Argento, and Lamberto Bava. Those are the names that you want to know. And also, what's his name? Sergio Martin or something? Yeah, something like that.
Which he's the one that gets thrown around a lot. And I think he's like a giallo guy specifically. Torso's the big one. Like most of the time when I've watched like the other giallo movies that aren't like the one, what's that? Don't Torture a Duckling. That's the one, Fulci one that I've seen. Outside of the Argento ones, none of them really like blow me away that much. There's people that just like, that's their jam though. Italian giallo, they just swear by it all.
I'm one of them. Like I love that shit, right? But like there is something about the style of Argento where he makes everything so sleek, the way the camera moves, the cinematography, the editing, and the music is way better than much of the stuff. You mean, honestly, some of the best composed scores of Fulci's films are like the stuff that Fabio Frizzi did, right? Like City of the Living Dead. And, you know, even like City of the Living Dead and The Beyond, even though they're more Lovecraftian in nature, the Gates of Hell trilogy, they are kind of more into that zombie kind of vein as well, right? So I do like the Fulci style of that, but I mean, it's Italian. There's something about it. It's something surreal. It's something about their culture that translates just right to me that makes it a little bit off kilter and a little bit off putting. And even though a lot of them are formulaic, there is something so transfixing about it. And Argento himself, for instance, makes murder look so beautiful.
Yeah.
As weird as that sounds to say.
No, it's 100% true, man. The other thing about just like almost every Italian film that I've watched in the horror genre is there's never like the traditional Western narrative structure. You know what I mean? They're always a little loose with their narratives. You're always like a little bit like, what the fuck is going on? They're never explaining everything to you too much. Other than in this movie when they have that one exposition scene where they bring in not one but two exposition guys in a row.
And that was like because they were like, Argento, I think we got to explain this movie a little bit. Just a little bit. So
I love that scene more and more every time I watch it, because if you pay attention, he knows what he's like. We're just doing exposition here. Let's go ham with the camera. The camera is just out of control on this little conversation.
You got two people in a room in parts of this movie, and it should just be the most visually uninteresting shot. And because of the set dressing, everything, you know. Oh, and the other thing, the cannibal bits, right? The cannibal side of Italian horror, very closely related to the zombie side. Honestly, they're really trying to push the boundaries of taste and gore and just decrepit nature, stuff like that. But the cannibal stuff, I do really appreciate it for what it is, because that's like the really raw, in your face, super subversive and transgressive. And transgression and subversion is another thing that's prevalent in all Italian horror, which I love, because it's a very Catholic country, and I think it comes across in their horror.
Hell yeah, man. Last thing I'll say on it, then I want to send it down to my man Phable. You said like this is like kind of the bridgeway to the American slasher. That is the big thing that these giallo movies have, are these set piece kills. Like the big difference is the cast, where there's not the teenagers. They're not necessarily picking off the entire cast one by one, but you do get these crazy set piece, extra gory kills. And they got away with a lot more gore in the 70s than we got away with here in the States in that era. But the one thing I wanted to say about Argento that we didn't mention in our previous chat that we had before, Robbie, is just the fact that his father was a producer and his mother was a photographer to like female models. And for whatever reason, when I heard that, that just clicked. This is a guy that was raised in the arts, in a culture that is already about the arts, surrounded by beautiful women. And like you look at his films, and a lot of people say that he's a misogynist and all that. He's just someone that appreciates beauty, and he puts beautiful women everywhere in his scenes. You look at the wallpaper, like everywhere. There's art everywhere in his films. It's just like overflowing with beauty. And this is the one. Like this one is like more beautiful than any of the other ones. Like it never reaches this level again. The only time he really tries it, like to the surreal level, is in Inferno, the sequel, and it doesn't quite get there. But Phable, my man, we normally start with like our overall thoughts, but that's going to be the second thing that we get into. Before you tell me your overall thoughts and how your experience was for the first time watching Susperia, what I want to know first is just this first 15 minutes, because that's one thing that's just crazy about this movie. It just opens up and it's just insane from the get-go. It's extra surreal. The rain is pouring. We've got this just gorgeous woman. We've got this crazy death scene right off the bat. So like the first 15 minutes, like what are you thinking watching this movie, hearing the music for the first time in your ears while you're watching it? What was the experience like, the opening?
Well, first thing that took me right away is cinematography. Beautiful wide, camera shots, panning shots, color, lots of color. Greens, reds. When they're stepping out from the airport, wherever they're stepping from, it's lit red. And then they're stepping from a red area into a well-lit area. So all of that struck me immediately, being, the film nerd that I am and stuff like that. So I immediately was like, okay. Because I haven't had a great experience with Italian horror. But this one immediately was just like, okay, we could put to rest the bad camera works in some of these movies. This does not have that. You know what I mean? And then that death scene was just like insane. It was just crazy, like the things that happened to this girl in the first 15 minutes. So yeah, it immediately drew me in. I'll tell you that.
Hell yeah, man. Steph, my brother, what about you? You just watched this today? There you are.
Sorry, I was having some lag issues.
That's all good.
Went unfreeze. Yeah, I just watched it today. First 15 minutes, I gotta agree with what Phable said with like the usage of color. Off rip, when she's in the taxi or whatever, she's like driving. You do like a side pan of like the streets, and you like every bush she's passing is like a green, and then the next one's like where there's like a hue of red. I was a little confused at first.
Yeah.
So when she gets to the school, right, and she runs up, she sees old girl run off into the woods. She gets in her taxi cab after like, I got the letter, like, oh, go away. So then like the next camera shot, it's like the girl who runs off walks up to the apartment.
It got me the first time. Like totally confused you because you're not sure. Like, is that the girl that was in the cab? That's why I'm saying like it is. It's they don't like make things super clear.
Yeah, I got that.
Second watch, it is super clear. It's just non-conventional what they do. Right. I did the same thing the first time.
But just yeah, just the like not even like the color, it's like the designs, and like the backgrounds of like the interior
Wallpapers.
and shit. Yeah, stuff like that. Um, very very impressive. I will say, like, after seeing some Italian horror that is it's questionable. This first couple minutes lets you know you're in for a different experience. So I appreciated that.
Hell yeah, man. Robbie, my brother. Now you've seen this obviously a shitload of times, but
Yeah.
you know how legendary this first 15 minutes is. So what are just your thoughts on it, man?
Man, I think it's one of the greatest openings of not just a horror movie of all time, like of any movie of all time. I think it's brilliant the way it throws you into this nightmare fairy tale. That's what it is. Argento wants to make like an early Disney grim fairy tale thing. In fact, in the story, these girls are supposed to be like 8 to 10 to 12 years old,
Yeah.
right? But they were like, ain't no way you're going to be doing this shit to like 10-year-old girls, bruh. So he totally like cast like adults, but he still wrote it. And they still wrote it. Him and Daria Nicolodi, they still wrote it so that it was like they were children. He wants it to be like a fairy tale. They go to the witch's hut, and like everything's beautiful there, but it's also like gnarly and it's rotting. That's why we get the maggot scene. And man, he throws you into everything in that first set piece. Like it's the strongest part of the movie, in my opinion, too, right? Just from the disorienting nature of the rain and the color and the music, you feel what Susie's feeling as she gets out there. It's drizzling rain. That cab driver's super creepy.
Yeah.
He's like a dick, and they go through the forest, right? Such a great shot. It's like Universal monster movies. That's like rotoscope. That's like Snow White stuff, right? Yeah, dude. And that's why there's all these bold primary colors, right? And I saw somebody mention this is one of the last films done in Technicolor, and it is. And when you do Technicolor, you have a lot of control. He would put these like gel colored lights like super close to the actors so that color would come through and they can make it pop in the Technicolor process. He wants it to look like Snow White. He wants it to look like primary colors, bold, shocking. He wants you to just be disoriented. And that goblin score, it's loud. We talk so many times, well, I didn't notice the music. Well, you can't say that here. Not at all, because the music is part of the movie. The music and the visuals, it's so wild. And that kill, that's just freaking awesome. I mean, come on, right?
While I'm thinking of it on the music, there's a lot of my favorite scores that came after this. They credit this score for being the inspiration for what they did. John Carpenter, so just the way it like dominates a scene, it almost becomes like a music video. John Carpenter and Halloween, very much inspired by this. Don Coscarelli, whoever did the score in Phantasm, again,
I kind of felt like the music was a character in a lot of ways. Like
totally,
the music was the thing she was running from. That's how I felt, the way it came across.
I mean, Robbie, just like what you said, there's sometimes like, oh, I didn't really notice it that much, or I noticed it in these few moments. No, you notice it the whole time. And if you start to not notice it, they just start banging drumsticks together at times and just
everything.
So
even when like Claudio Simonetti's like, just doing like these weird, like, and all this shit. Like Phable's right. Like when Daniel's out there, the blind dude, and there's some kind of evil foreboding presence coming over him. It's the music that he's reacting to is what it feels like. The music is the witches. The music is the evil. It's so powerfully done.
I heard someone say like they question like when you see the girl running through the woods and the music's going all crazy, like, can she hear that? Like it almost feels like maybe she can, because why is she freaking out so much? I never thought about it with the blind guy, but why is he freaking out? Why is he freaking out so much? Yeah, man, let's just get into like overall. Robbie, I'll start with you this time. Obviously, I know you love the shit out of it, but like overall, why is this such a great movie? Why does it stand the test of time the way it does?
I remember the first time I watched this film. So this was one of those movies that, I didn't watch this when I was a kid. I never saw this at the VHS store that I remember, right? But like in the early 2000s, I'm like learning more about horror, right? And then I start hearing in like reading in Fangoria magazines and the early days of the internet, right? And like I'm hearing about this legendary film Suspiria, right? And it's supposed to be so gnarly and crazy. And I remember watching it. I rented it from a video store on DVD, and I took it to my girlfriend's house and we watched it. And I was just like, I have no idea what I just watched, but something about it is compelling to me.
I love what
And I
Alison Troy
watched it
says.
again the
If
next
you're not
day.
confused, you're watching it wrong. And I bet you were confused a little bit. Sorry to cut you off.
Oh yeah, I was totally confused. And so I watched it the next day. I went back to that video store. I remember I took back, I don't remember what it was, but I brought back one. I re-rented Suspiria, and then I rented Frankenhooker. And
There you go.
but I watched Suspiria again. I was just so enamored with it. And then I get into Dario Argento. I start finding out other films that he's done. I watch Deep Red, Bird with the Crystal Plumage, Tenebrae, and it just starts a love affair. And my girl was watching him with me until I rented Phantom of the Opera, which is incredibly like softcore porn, like, but with Phantom of the Opera. And I remember she was just looked at me one day, goes, "You watch some weird shit." Right? But like, I became obsessed with Argento, man.
I've had my wife turn to me and go, "Robbie watches some weird shit." So it's not just her.
Oh man, another girlfriend walked in while I was watching Castle Freak, and she walked in at the absolute wrong time. And she thought I was just like the most evil, vile person in the world, dude. But no, I've always loved this film. I think it's beautiful. It's the best of Argento's work. I think it's just so beautiful. It's so beautiful. Like, the story is paper thin. It's a simple tale. It's a fairy tale.
Yeah.
But the way he tells it, it's mesmerizing. It's dreamlike, right? Those colors they become a character too, right? And very often he goes from green to blue to red and like that pink and purple hue. And it's just, I've been obsessed with it. My house is painted in lights that I can mimic an Argento film, basically, right? I love this shit out of the color. The music is amazing. Goblin is so freaking awesome. I mean, their score for Profondo Rosso is amazing.
Yeah.
Their score for Zombie is awesome, but there is something about this one that just works and works so well. And
so
the more I watch
too.
it, yeah, very different. It's very prog rock, but very out there and visceral. And Argento saw his father work with Sergio Leone, who made Once Upon a Time in the West. Yes. And they had gotten Ennio Morricone to do the music beforehand. So he decided to do that with Goblin. And it says music by Goblin in collaboration with Dario because he kind of told them what to do. They did it. And then he's the one that puts it in the movie where it's going to have maximum effect.
Right.
Dude, so they had that music on set.
I'm glad you brought up Sergio Leone because that's another thing that I keep forgetting to mention, and something I did not know about Argento for a long time, that he co-wrote. He's the first credit you see on Once Upon a Time in the West.
Yeah,
one of the biggest westerns, one of the biggest films of the era for sure. Those Sergio Leone films, which I just got into recently, like, that's another thing. If you want to get into foreign films in general, Italian westerns, like I didn't realize the connection. Went back and watched like that Dollar Trilogy, all those Clint Eastwood movies. You see the influence so much in Argento and Fulci and all those Italian directors.
And it's all like a post-war kind of thing too. It comes through in a lot of the themes in their movies, right? And the Western stuff also shows you the zombie stuff. It's related because it's like whatever worked in America, they would mimic. Right. So like America has a successful zombie movie. So then they do zombies. America has success. John Ford, those days. Right. So they start making their movies. You remember those are after those movies. Right. And there's a lot of those in that, just like Kurosawa influences the American movies and the Italian Westerns, as well as he himself got influenced. So I love seeing the international culture of film and how American cinema and Japanese cinema and Italian cinema, and they all kind of flow together with some of their influences, right? But I've always loved this movie. I think it's amazing. It's like you said, I love it more and more every time. And every time is scarier than the last. Yeah. Like there's something about once you're settled into what this movie is, you just allow yourself to experience it. And like when Sarah shows up at the end with those pins in her eyes and just starts laughing, it's scary. You know, things that were cheesy to me at first, like when Helena Marcos is there and she's like laughing all like crazy and she's the old woman disappears and you see the flash, like, no, that's actually kind of chilling now for some reason. Like this movie to me is scary, and it does it does inspire dreams sometimes when I watch it too much, but I love it. I love it so much. It's beautiful. It's operatic, man.
Hell yeah, man. It reminds me, I've said this before, but it's like in this film, there's never a scene taken off. And like what it makes me think of are like concept albums from the same era. like Dark Side of the Moon or like Sergeant Pepper, or these things that flow together song to song. And it's just like, you can tell there's so much care taken. Anything that could be boring, they're like, well, let's just do something fucking crazy with the camera and it won't be boring. It'll be super dope. And that's what they do. But Link, like I told you, this is a movie I've heard so many people say. I didn't really like it that much the first time. And then I watched it again and I liked it a lot more. So your first watch, I could tell you liked the beginning, but your overall thoughts, your first time watching it, my brother, what'd you think of Suspiria, dude?
I enjoyed it. No, I enjoyed it. Say more enthusiastically. I think I probably would gain some more upon further watches, but my first watch, I was pretty enthralled with it. Visually from start to finish, you know, if you're pleased by visual aesthetics, this movie has that in spades.
Fuck yeah.
Just, you know, I was looking at like a quick info bibliography. I don't know what the term is for like the director trying on YouTube before this, and one of the comments was like, it's like he's like Kubrick meets Wes Anderson, and I thought that was pretty apt, pretty on point, because I don't know, it's like there really isn't too much of a story. It's, you know, right. It's kind of thin, but I don't really give a fuck because the movie just looked so cool throughout the entire runtime. So I appreciate that. Yeah, I'm one to like to find stuff between the lines, so I probably will go back and rewatch this, and you know,
well, because kind of what Robbie was saying, the way it's not clear in a lot of ways. On a second watch, you're not trying to figure shit out. You're not like, who is that, confusing characters together, or why is this chick being brought back from the dead, or what is going on? Once you know everything and you can really just let the music, let the visuals wash over you, it is that much better.
Oh, yeah. Speaking of the music, what I thought was kind of cool is like, and this is the beginning though, when she walks down, she's walking down the corridor of the airport, and she like walks through the doorway, you know?
Yes.
It was like there was like a build up, you know, like a almost like dark whimsical build up.
I love that so much.
She was maybe like Alice in Wonderland almost, because you know we're talking about fever dreams and stuff like that. But
I love it how it's like, sorry, like she's safe inside, and you can tell like something out there is dangerous. You're good here. Are you sure you want to go through that door? And the second she walks through the door, the music kicks in, the rain kicks in, and that cab driver, she's like, first of all, I wouldn't have fucking got out and helped her with her bags either. Can you give me a hand? He's like, fuck you. No one here is here to help you. Like you're a stranger in a strange world. Yeah. Which I also just like, I love, while I'm thinking of, before I forget to say it, the way this ties in so perfectly with our summer abroad theme. This is a film written and directed by an Italian about an American girl going abroad to Germany. This fits perfect. Like she's a stranger in a strange land, just like we are in Italy. But go out, my brother. Link, did you have more? I'm sorry.
Oh no.
This is interesting. Sal watched 2018 first. Interesting. Sorry.
Is that where I was gonna ask that? Is that worth the watch?
Bro, I think it's fucking awesome. It's like a 2.5 hour movie that if they cut out 40 minutes of it, it would be so fucking awesome. There's this whole plot line that doesn't matter at all, but everything else is really, really fucking cool. It's so different, and it looks nothing like this. He's like, we're not gonna try and do the red and blue. He's like, we can't do it. And it's not as beautiful in any way. It's more dingy, more grungy, but it's cool. It's a cool movie. Would you agree, Robbie? It's a pretty cool movie.
It's not this one.
No, it's not, but it's, I like
my opinion. It's not this one.
I appreciate that he didn't try to make this one. It's not a concept album movie. It's not a surreal fever dream.
I think I need to rewatch it or something, but I wasn't super impressed when I first watched it, but I don't know. I did like the Tom York score. Tom York does the score, but I don't know. I need to rewatch it. It is a little long.
It's definitely too long. It's
2.5 fucking hours long, brother.
I'm considering putting it on a pretty big event lineup coming up. I'm considering doing it for Horror Fest. We'll see, because it'll be a great discussion. Regardless, 100%, it'll be a great discussion.
It's not this one.
No. Well, then nothing else is. You know what I mean?
I know. That's what I'm saying.
I'm glad it exists though, because it is cool. But
I'm trying not to talk shit about it, okay? Because I don't really know if I actually don't like the movie or if I just don't like that it's not this movie.
What's Alison Troy got to say? She says, I quite like the 2018 version. It was a completely different movie. It was filmed like a 1970s crime drama meets indie drama. It is, there's all this like in the background of this movie. One thing that's going on, and I haven't fully appreciated this until learned about it this week. There's all this like Nazi Germany stuff in the background, in the subtext, like the place that they go to where they've got those guys doing that weird fucking dance and everything. That hall is the place where Hitler gave his first speech, like public speech in 1918. And then 2 years later, it's the place where the Nazi party was formed.
Yep.
And like the building where the dance studio is a replication of some other like German building that is tied to the Nazis somehow.
When Daniel's out there in Munich, right, with the big buildings, there's like an eagle up there to like try to represent, you know, the Nazi party a little bit. There's a lot of subtle stuff because, like I said, there's a lot of post-war Italy that comes through in their films, right? Because that's something they're still dealing with. They're, you know, they were a part of that, right? Mussolini and like the Axis powers and all that stuff. So it's interesting to see the films from post-war countries. Godzilla was one we just talked about, right?
Totally, yeah, exactly. The exposition scene that you get later on, that's in front of the BMW building. And I never thought why, but the reason supposedly why it is in front of the BMW building is because they made like motorcycles and Jeeps for the Nazis during the war. So there's all these things kind of pointing like, and it kind of ties in with the theme, like when they're explaining the exposition. Basically, there's evil everywhere. Underneath everything, there is evil around us. There's witch and Nazis fucking everywhere that we're not aware of.
And Argento believed in witches 100% and Satanists, right? Because Italy's a very Catholic country, and their belief in the satanic powers of the occult is very real, even to those who you wouldn't necessarily think to call religious, right?
Right. Hell yeah. All right, my brother Phable, I feel like you've just been sitting there looking pretty for long enough. I'm dying to hear what was your overall thoughts, brother, on Suspiria?
Oh, okay. So I hate to be that guy for you guys, but I'm gonna be that guy.
Be it.
I thought this movie was pretty boring. I'm gonna be honest with you.
Wow.
Yeah, first 15 minutes drew me in completely. And I'm glad you guys all said all the things you said, because everything you said is what I thought, right? Like, doesn't have much of a story, Steph said. I felt the same exact way. Sort of unconventional in a lot of ways. Would throw you off. You said, Verno, that you're like, I don't know what the hell this is, right? And all those feelings came across to me, right? I'm like, you know, it's a gorgeous film. Shot after shot, it's beautiful. And like Steph said, it's enough to keep you there. It is. It did keep me there. But after that first death, I wanted more. And I didn't get that hardly at all through the whole movie. There's probably 3 major deaths in this movie, right? And you got to remember, I'm hearing what all of you guys heard. This is the best. This is the tops of the top. So maybe that crept in.
Right. Oh, 100%.
And you said something, I'm trying to remember what you said, but I was like, yeah, exactly. Like, I don't exactly know what's going on. The exposition dumps bother me, right? But again, these are all things that are not traditional, like you said. And when I watched, after this movie, I was curious as to why everybody loves this thing so much. Why is it so high on so many people? Why is Robbie so obsessed with it, right? Because I think we've seen better movies, quite frankly, that he's trashed. So I want
like Minority Report.
I want to know what it is, right? So I did a YouTube little rabbit hole, getting on people's opinions and dissecting the movie, and I gotta agree that all of them said, if you're looking for a plot, this is not the movie for you. If you're looking for this and that, this is not it. If you don't like the first 10, all of them gave that kind of warning in the beginning before they expounded, right? So I'm thinking, I got to watch this thing again. Not only do I have to watch it again, but I got to watch it in Italian. Can't watch that freaking stupid.
I don't know. I mean,
the Italian's a dub too.
Yeah, the Italians are
Yeah,
dubbed too.
but
Everything
I
is.
started watching a little bit of the Italian, and it gripped me more.
Do
It
you
did.
understand
The
it?
only no, the only
Oh, okay.
problem is it didn't have English subtitles. So I'm gonna say that overall the movie is okay, but I'm
Sorry.
starting to grasp or
Right.
understand why it has such a fandom, right?
Totally.
And I think if I watch it a few more times, I'm gonna get it, right? Because maybe it's me. I'm not picking it up, right? And I'm totally I totally would take that. Like it's okay if I'm not fast enough for it. You know what I'm saying?
I don't think it's that at all. If I can jump in, first of all, you're not the fucking first person to say they didn't enjoy
Well,
Suspiria
that's what
or
made
that the
me
first
feel a
15
little
minutes was
better.
the best. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that argue that. My thing, let me just, and Robbie, I'm sure you got something to say. This is what I'll say about the story, because I said the same fucking thing. Like the first time I watched it, I was like, oh, okay, that was cool. And I've said, the stories, whatever. This last time watching it, I appreciated the story and the writing more than I've ever appreciated it. And I'm not saying there's a lot there. I'm not saying it's fucking intricate. But when you look at like the mystery that they're building and the way they build the mystery, that what is happening to Susie. You remember we talked before? I think it was when we talked about Lucio Fulci's Black Cat. But these like Susie's just walking around this whole movie, just kind of observing. She ain't doing much. She ain't saying stuff. She's got a little bit of a personality. She's kind of like a badass, actually, like in a subtle way. But in these Italian movies, a lot of times they just have the main character just as like a blank slate to guide us through the movie. We're just like following Susie around this fucking world. But I just think I'm trying to defend the story, but I guess I don't even know what to say to
No,
defend it.
you don't have
There's
to.
stuff going. There's a lot of mysteries going on. Like why, and we'll get into some of these like questions that I have. What do the doctors do? What are they shooting her with? Why
Well,
don't they want her to
there
stay at
is.
Olga's house? What is this with the
Now
money? And there's a lot of questions that I have about the movie that aren't ever answered.
you're getting into what I was doing, right? Which is
Mhm.
maybe the wrong thing to do. That's why I'm glad you guys said what you said, especially you. And now I remember what you said. You said the first time I'm watching, I'm thinking, who's this girl and who's that and who's that, and I'm doing that. I was actively
Mhm.
doing that instead of just taking in the beauty and just riding with it, right? But I maybe need a little more because there's characters in there that I absolutely want to know more about. I want to know
Mm.
about more about the headmistress, right?
Yeah.
She's all regular until the very end, and she's like, "Kill the American bitch, kill her, kill her." You know
Mm.
what I mean? Like, I needed more of that. I needed to
You do
see
a pretty
more
good
of her.
Helena Marcos.
And there's a lot of things like that, like the cops coming and then never seeing them again.
You know
Oh, the
why they
best friend.
come? I love it. This is something I saw in the special features, and that's why I love special features. A lot of these people are smarter than me. I'm like, oh, that's so cool. What they represent are Dario Argento's older films. In the Giallo movies, those would have been the main characters. That's what they would have been dressed like. They were all male leads. Another thing I wanted to mention: this is the first movie that he co-wrote with Daria Nicolodi, who became his wife and his they worked
Baby's
together.
mama?
They worked together on films. Collaborator was the word that I was looking for. She had a major impact on this movie and like feminized it up. Her grandma supposedly went to a piano school or a music school of some sort. I don't think it was dance, and she thought it was ran by witches, and she claims to have escaped there. So she wrote a lot of this story, and anyway, that's what I think that is. That's kind of like a shout out, like his goodbye to the
Right.
Shallow.
But for me, it's like illogical, right?
Yeah,
It's going to be illogical because they come to investigate the girl, but they never do more than that. They just come in, ask a couple of questions, and you never see them
I
again.
wouldn't say it's
The best,
illogical. It's just something you wouldn't normally. They're just there. They don't get explained. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? I don't know. It's like
What
a left
what
dangling.
was what was the one we watched on DHS? The Scarpet recommended.
Burial ground.
burial
Burial
ground.
Ground. After watching that, I kind of didn't expect, if it's like character shit doesn't happen. I know like that's not the focus of this, you know,
Right,
it's more
right.
visual thing. But I mean I get what you mean, but like Burial Ground set the standard, so it's like, I kind of went in
Well, I'll say this: this is
like
way better than burial ground
Oh
by a
yeah,
mile,
yeah.
for sure, for sure. But you know, maybe I just need a little more plot. Maybe I'm the kind of person that just needs a little bit more explained. It just can't be pretty imagery over and over again. It kind of like, okay, I get it.
Right.
But why are the worms there? Why are the damn worms there?
I don't
You know
know.
what I
I
mean?
still don't know.
Or you know what I mean? Where's the hairy arm killer that stabbed the chick in the beginning? I want to see that.
She
thing
might be
again.
one of
Where does
them.
that
She
thing
might be
go?
one of the people. This is what I like. I kind of have grown to like all these questions. But Robbie, you've been very quiet. I would like to hear you respond to this.
I just want to say that when I first watched it, I felt the same way.
Mm.
Right? I was like, oh, this is it. I thought it was like that ended rather abruptly, right? But there was something about it tonally that I really liked, right? It's kind of same thing when I watched Southland Tales for the first time. I was like, I did not understand that movie. But then I started studying that movie and I found out that there's a comic book that came before it and this and that, right? So I get into Suspiria, I start getting into the rest of Argento's filmography. I realized he did this movie called Inferno, which is a sequel of sorts to Suspiria,
Mm-hmm.
right? What Inferno is Inferno is about Helena Marcos's sister, one of the three mothers.
Mm-hmm.
And so then I realized that there's this mythology in the background that's incredibly subtle. So, but for instance, in the Goblin score, that's part of it. Like when Susie's walking to her final confrontation, right down that hall with all the writing in different languages and the gold embroidery stuff, right? Like the Claudio Simonetti is like saying there are three witches, and he's like telling you exposition in the music, right?
I never
Just
heard
little
that.
things like stuff like that, right? And then so in Inferno, it's the mother and she's in New York, and so there's this story that this is based on, right? I can't remember who the writer was, but it's something like Diary of a Dope Fiend or something like, well, I don't know, but he tells the story of these three mothers who secretly rule the world, one in Rome, one in New York, one in the black, like in Germany, right? And one, you know, so they took the Mater Suspiriorum or whatever and came up with Suspiria. It means the mother of sighs, sorrow, that kind of thing. Inferno's about the mother of darkness. And then eventually, I remember being so excited when he finally completed the trilogy in like the late 2010, like 2000s, right? The late like 2008, 9, something like that. He did Mother of Tears, where it was the final one, right? The youngest and most beautiful of the three. And I just became so transfixed with the story. And it's paper thin. It's fairy tale. They go, the kids go into the witch's house, the witches attack, one of them gets away, right? That's pretty much what it is. But I so got into the lore behind it, right? And then like knowing all that lore, I'm filling in the gaps. Why are there maggots? Maybe because they're witches and it's evil and evil things rot. And like in ancient witch folklore, seeing maggots and flies was like a sign that was a witch's house and stuff like that, right? So, because it's not something they wanted, you know? So
right.
it's just evil. It's the rotting evil that's inside of this place, right? Why are they acting this way? Why is it all? I mean, you'll get to these questions, but I think it's because they're witches. And what do we think witches do? They worship the devil. They try to manipulate and control things. And they also try to steal the youth and vigor and beauty of the young.
Yeah. You know what? That's another thing I was going to ask you is like, why the dance studio? But I think that's one thing I was thinking about more this time. I think the maggot thing could be just an excuse to get them all into the gymnasium so they could bring down Helena Marcos, the mother of sighs, and get them close to all these young girls to feed off their energy. And I totally fucking I get what you're saying, Phable, or maybe that's something like those types of things
say this.
shouldn't be as subtle as they are.
You guys are speaking in hindsight, right? You know what's going on already. You know they're witches. I don't know that that's what's happening in this movie. I don't know that that's what this is going to ultimately end up being, is about a coven of witches that own a dance school or whatever. I mean, the guy in the killer blazer told us everything we needed to know in that scene, but that's not something that's like totally given to you. And once you catch the drift of it, you're waiting for more of it. You're waiting for more of it, and you don't get it until the last 10 minutes. Until she finds that secret room, sees the people that you've always suspected were something shady with them. They're in a room finally showing their true colors. And it's like, damn, but I just, why did we go through all of this when we could have just had a little more of that? That's what I'm saying. All the cool stuff is really cool, but it's sparse. And there's a lot of stuff in between that, although beautiful, I don't know. It could be filled with more.
That is exactly like, to me, I feel like, and I'm not saying like you're watching the movie wrong. I'm just saying like my experience is I'm so fucking enthralled by those moments in the middle. Like I'm so like just fucking blown away by like each piece of wallpaper that I see. Or like I might have already
okay, I'm going through the movie. I saw that beautiful death scene in the beginning in this opulent, building or whatever, and architecture, all that stuff. And then I don't get anything, right? Anything. And then when the girl falls into the barbed wire, that's when I gasped. I was like, oh, holy shit, she fell in barbed wire. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's crazy.
The dog bit didn't get you? He's
okay.
like chewing that meat off of his fucking neck and shit, dude. I'm entertained by I like Miss Tanner.
What was that movie we saw where the dog attacks the person?
It was a Fulci movie.
They did it scene off.
They did it better. Yeah, they did it. This was the most I've ever enjoyed the dog scene, I'll say. I used to, like, the first time I saw it, oh my God. Sorry, I'm watching my baby on the monitor and she has just decided to get naked. I'll have to go deal with that. I think I'm gonna have to fucking deal with that. The first time I saw the dog scene, like when they showed the dog at one point on the neck, I'm like, oh God, that looks so fake. For whatever reason, I really bought it this time. And the gore, it is a really gory, nasty, but there's one thing I wanted to say, Phable. Excuse me. I do agree. Like, I wish, like later when they cut Sarah's neck, like after the barbed wire bit, like I feel like that was the moment. That's cool. Don't get me wrong. That is cool. But I feel like that was the moment to outdo the opening scene with the gore. Like, they held back there. And if they wouldn't have held back there, if they would have fucking blown us away and outdone the opening scene, I think we might feel differently about just the pace of at least the violence in the movie.
But just to wrap up my overall thoughts, I think this is a very interesting movie that I will revisit. Because I want to unravel it in a lot of ways. And I think that's what made you guys fans, right? Because you guys both just said you didn't understand this shit the first time you saw it, but then you went down a rabbit hole, right? So I think if we revisit this in 3 years and I've seen it 3 or 4 times, I might say something different. But as of now, it's okay.
Good, dude. You know what? Let me just say, I'm so glad that you've had all this to say, because this is the discussion that this movie needs, because there are a lot of people that feel exactly the way that you feel, and there's a lot of people that feel exactly the way that Robbie feels. So I love that. Like, I'm glad that we've got all these perspectives on the panel here. Let me, go ahead, please.
Have you guys ever seen that Paul Walker Running Scared movie?
Yeah.
No? The whole dark fairy tale kind of reminds me of it now. Running Scared is probably more my vein. I haven't seen it in a while, but it's not a horror, but it's worth checking out. It's got, like, now that I'm looking back on that, I can see like how Running Scared was inspired by it.
That's it. I'm about to look into it now. Let me pull up. I'm just gonna leave that naked baby out there and hope she don't shit on my floor, guys. I think she looks like she's happy. All right, let her be. I'm gonna pull up this that I slapped together earlier. It doesn't have all the characters in it, but I've got most of the main players up here. I think I left the blind guy out. I tried to squeeze him in there, but I just couldn't do it. There's the broke guy, the gay dude at the dancing studio that's not in here as well. But Robbie, what is just your thoughts on the cast? Do you have a favorite? There's a lot of weird characters, like Phable, you pointed out, that we don't get a lot of, but that I do appreciate more and more each time that I watch this movie.
My favorite character is Miss Tanner, the instructor, the head instructor. I think the dude on Dead Meat has said, like, it looks like she's about to break her teeth at any moment with the way that she's like so hardcore smiling all the time. The way she's walking. I love the scene she has with Daniel where she's like, he did it. That filthy, rotten, disgusting mud of yours built little Albert, I love her accent. I love her intensity. She is fucking scary.
Yeah.
She comes up behind Susie. He's like, I didn't realize you were so strong-willed. My compliments, right?
I love that. And I love that scene too. Like when Susie does stand up to Madame Blanc, I love that. She's a strong, badass character that doesn't do a lot of like typical strong, badass things. She's not Ripley out there beating aliens' asses, but she's super strong.
Yeah. And I love the bit too where where Susie's talking to Madame Blanc and Miss Tanner comes in and she's like, "Would you please leave us alone? I want to talk to Susie alone." And you can tell she's just so fucking pissed and she just storms off. So I really love her. And also the creepy dude who only speaks Romanian. There's a moment where he brings Susie that bland ass food, which looks like hospital food. It's terrible, right? But when he's leaving and closing the door, he kind of looks at the camera. That to me was one of the chilling moments watching it this time. Like it like felt like the movie was looking at me, and that I was like, witches are real and they're about to come right now.
There's a moment that's similar to that I only noticed this time for the first time. When the lady in the middle there, like the maid, when she shines that light in Susie's face,
yeah.
The second that light shines, that creepy little kid smiles.
He smiles, yes.
And then by the time the light's gone, the smile's gone. It's like, oh, you little shit.
It's super fucking creepy, dude. And you feel like you're being hypnotized, right? Like that's a moment I love. And then the music comes in, everything goes slow. I mean, that's when they start doing it. That's when they start doing it.
That's what I had these things that I was gonna ask in a chunk, but I'll just hit them as we get to them. That's one right there. Like, that's what you think is going on, is them like putting a spell on her? Like, do they want her to be a witch at one point? Is that what you think? Like, is she a witch?
They want Susie's energy, right? And that's why I think it's a dance academy. Like all three of these films, in some kind of form or fashion, deal with an art form, right? Like Inferno, it's like an architect, it's a musician, in Mother of Tears or something like that, right? There's like, it's about the arts. Argento's from the arts. It's Italy as well, right? But so knowing that these are supposed to be very young women, and if you even notice, like the doorknobs are way too high to make them look young and kids. That's why they're like sticking their tongues out at each other and calling each other snakes. Like they're acting like little girls, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they also are super crazy about money. So I think that when they get there, they are leeching the energy off of these young. Like these are not just dancers. This is like a very prestigious dance school.
The number one in the world. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like incredibly talented young women that are youthful and vigorous and have a whole world ahead of them. And they're like there to leech this energy off of them, right? Like to gain it and give it to Helena Marcos and like to their gods and Satan even and stuff like that. So that's what I think they're doing. And I think it's a spell. I think that's what they're feeding her. They're feeding her stuff. They want her to stay there so they can do that, right? Like they're lying about them not being there. And I think that's what's going on. I think it's like an energy kind of leech thing like that to keep Helena Marcos alive, because she's been alive for a very, very long time.
Right. It gives me like vibes of Rosemary's Baby, where you've got these people trying to take like her ability to make her own decisions. They're gonna tell her where she's living. They're gonna inject her with medicine. They're feeding her certain things that they want her to eat, just like in Rosemary's Baby.
Yep.
They're
brilliant. Taking away her agency, man.
Yeah, that's the fucking word I was looking for. God damn, you're good at this word stuff. You're really good at it. Missing Link, who is also just good at words. Do you got some words on the cast? Just your general thoughts, brother. Any of your favorites?
No, I think everyone did a great job, bro. Especially, I kept in mind that this is in the same genre as Burial Ground, so that's some Oscar-worthy performances compared to that. Some people seemed a little that they were really going for that Oscar. Like I think it was her friend that ends up dying. Like she was like sitting next to her when she's like on the bed at one point, and she's just like being really over dramatic and really, really delivering it. But it wasn't bothersome. Everyone else was fine. I did.
She might be the worst. I think Sarah might be the worst actress, or whoever does the dub. And then the two girls at the beginning. That's the only bad part of the first 15 minutes. Those two have a pretty shitty sounding back and forth, like for sure.
Oh yeah, it's like I've been kicked out of school ever since. Yeah, that it was a little silted.
It's just like kung fu movies, though. You gotta just get used to that shit,
right? That's true. It's true.
Because this wasn't filmed in any particular language. Like there are Americans there are Germans there are Italians there. They're all speaking their native language because they just know it's going to be dubbed.
I saw at one point, I felt like they were like mouthing, like, because I made the mistake of I tried to do my pirate thing, and so the subtitles were shit. I'll just say that.
That sucks.
So I had finding it on Zumo or some shit like that. but it had the dubbed. So I was trying to watch subtitles, but I was just like, fuck it, time
Dude,
constraint.
I was watching. I tried to watch Audition on Tubi, and it was like lagging in the subtitles. So it was like 5 seconds late. And it's like it
Yep,
ruined the movie. And that was on Tubi. Tubi,
that was
not
happening to me, and I couldn't do it, bro. But I I'm I lost what I was gonna say. I'm not gonna. I'm a little high, but yeah, I'll come back.
Gotta appreciate the honesty, man. I love it. Bro, I'm sorry. I just spaced the fuck out, dude. I've done that, man. I think I've done it tonight.
I had something great. It'll come back.
I think Jessica Harper does a good dub of herself. I'll tell you that.
I think we lost Vern.
I did like the Romanian dude though. There's a scene. It's I didn't notice the other scenes you guys talking about. Makes me want to go back and catch them. But he was like he's giving something to the main girl, and and it's the camera's going like back and forth, and it's like there's a shot of like him, and he's just looking at her, and I'm like that was weird because it's like it was such it seems supposed to, it's not all the time, but it seems supposed to move the story forward. And I was just like, that's such a random shot of him, but it was creepy,
Yeah.
like he had this dead stare in his eyes that was
There's a piece of me that think he's the hand that we see, the hairy, super naily hand that we see reach through the window. And I love how he's just like holding her face against the window, and she's like all like, dude, it's just so
man, she got her ass beat. I thought it was done after that, and then it's like she gets pulled through the window. Then he like that, yeah, and the stabbing. Bro, the was that the scene where he like carved out her heart, right? And then started like stabbing, bro. Like that's what I'm saying. It was like nonstop, like.
He made sure she was dead.
He stabbed her, tied her up, and then stabbed her a few more times. Just to make sure.
Dude, and her reactions, like I love that when he just like jabs her and she's like, and then the music's like, and then it's all blue and red light. Like, oh my goodness, man. So crazy. So I guess Phable, what did you think about the cast in the film?
They were very interesting, and it kind of plays into how I feel about the movie, because I feel like everybody's distinctly weird in their own way, and I want to know about them. I want to know why they're so goddamn strange. Like, you know what I mean? Like the headmistress lady you talked about, she's great. I love her. She reminds me of the lady from Young Frankenstein, Freud Fringling. What was her name? You know what I'm talking
Frau
about.
Brewer.
It's almost the same. Yeah, Frau Brewer. Her. Exactly. Which I loved her weirdness like that. The headmistress, who looked properly mean, like she looked like she was a bitch, and I didn't get to see that side of her. I wanted to see it so bad, or at least something that showed that she wasn't as nice as she was saying. But I guess just to answer the question, the two characters that I probably like the most would probably be the blind guy with the dog, because to me, when I saw him and he get into it with the headmistress, I was like, okay, so he's not down with this shit. Not everybody's down with this shit. You know what I'm saying? So he was kind of that for me, because I knew something was gonna happen once he got into the argument with the lady. And it was another character. Damn, I wish Verno had that picture up again. But I guess the headmistress, headmistress and the blind guy. Though they stood out for me the most. Yeah.
Heck yeah. Do y'all have any thoughts about well, thank you, Verno. I hope you get back soon. Do y'all have any thoughts about what's actually going on? Like what they're doing to Susie, why they want her there, what they're actually, what their purpose is?
I kind of like thought like maybe she was supposed to be like a possession thing, or like maybe like she was like maybe the one piece of the puzzle left. I really got like the vibes that they were trying to use her as a vessel of sorts, or she was like that last piece of the puzzle they needed to complete their plan. I'm not too sure, to be honest. But those are vibes I got.
Yeah. Yeah, I was getting the impression that she was a good witch, like a Glenda, the good witch. Because the lady at the beginning said, she said, "Oh, you know my aunt" or something like that, right? Didn't she say that to her? Like,
Yeah,
uh, and she was like,
a
"Yeah, oh
fine
yeah, I know
woman.
her, fine woman, yeah, like that." And I felt like maybe they was trying to turn her to the dark side, kind of thing. Maybe they sensed her power. Maybe she had a
Mm.
power to her.
Yeah.
And now that you guys said what you said, it kind of makes more sense that they were trying to suck the energy out of just anybody, period. And she's just the focus of the movie. But I was getting mostly that she might have been a witch as well, like Link said. But um, she didn't realize it yet. But they didn't give us enough of it. You
See,
know?
and maybe that is true because maybe they are not actively trying to recruit, but trying to get people with certain power. So, like, if you're at this prestigious dance club, like their dance studio, you're like the best of the best in the world. You know what I'm saying? And like some Black Swan shit, you know, that's a lot of like dedication and focus on one thing. And dedication and focus, that's like a concentrated bit of energy that you put into one thing, and maybe that's like can lead you into the art craft of the occult or something like that. Maybe they want that because, for instance, that kid, the dude who Susie thinks is into him, he's part of it, right? Because he's lying about Sarah. He's like, oh yeah, she left and I heard a car drive away. And you even see, like, I'm pretty sure he's the one that goes after Sarah, right? I think he's the one that's walking and puts on the robe or whatnot. But like, I do believe that he's a big part of it too, because he just kind of drops off there. What do y'all think of
What
Miss
happened
Tanner
to
though?
him?
Miss Tanner
She
was
was one of the
great,
best.
right?
Oh yeah. Probably the strongest actor in the movie, to be honest. From being honest, um, she knew what role she was playing, and we're talking about the headmistress, correct?
Yeah.
Well, the headmistress is actually Helena Marcos, right? The witch at the very end. But she's like the head instructor,
Oh,
right? The one who like runs the girls,
yeah.
stepping all over those maggots, gritting those
Yeah.
teeth.
She
I don't know, Robbie. I'm getting the feeling you got a thing for her. I don't know.
She's just so fucking funny to me, man. She's like that teacher. We all had a teacher that was like that, where you're just like, I don't want to fuck with that girl. Like, I am not gonna fuck with that teacher. Like, I'm scared of her. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's the vibe I get. She didn't give a fuck about stepping all over those maggots, man.
Matter of fact, thank you for saying that, because that's what gave me the impression that she might have been a good witch, is because when she like went up over her shoulder and was like, "Oh, I see when you make up your mind" or whatever. Like, it's like almost like she's recruiting her.
Because
Like,
you have a strong will. Will's very important
yeah.
in magic, right? Hell yeah. What'd y'all think about the music? Since we're still waiting on Verno to figure out his shit. He must be over streaming from Dynamite's offices tonight.
Music was fantastic. I can't articulate it any better than you guys, but Fable said it was a character into itself earlier. That's true. Like it's like I was saying at the beginning, it completely set the mood for her entering into this otherworldly place. You know, it's like as soon as she walks through the doors, the music hits, the wind blows her hair back. You know, starts storming really bad. Um, it's it's almost like a music video and a very extended music video in a sense where it's music videos tend to be more about the visuals, and this was a very visual film. And it's like the plot, this it's not it's not deep. I don't want to say it's paper thin, it's a little paper thin, but I feel like the music helps carry the film along. I don't know, it is a character, it really does add to the mood of certain scenes
Hello?
that maybe the dialogue get across. Hey.
In and out.
I don't know. Well, I think I might be popping in and out, man. I don't think this is gonna work. My
we can hear
whatever
you, I
shit is called,
think.
hot.
Yeah, we can hear.
What? What?
Can you hear us?
Am I here? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, can you not see me?
Yeah, I see you.
You should see me, dude. I look great, man. Fuck.
A little Max
Yeah, I mean, I
Headroom,
can hear you
yeah,
guys.
we see you.
But yeah, I'm on my whatever the hot spot. It finally got to where I don't know. This shit went down. It went down hard. I got this naked. Okay, well, shit then. I guess you guys ready to rate this thing and wrap it up? If you guys feel like you've said your piece, am I here?
Yeah, I think so.
I have
Yeah,
no
we're good.
confidence that you guys can hear anything I'm saying. Oh fuck. Well, let's rate and wrap this thing up, man, so I can end this. Robbie, Robbie, do you know what will happen if I get kicked out and don't come back and you guys end the stream? Will it end?
We can't end it. Only you
Can you
can
not hear
end
me?
it.
Fuck. Okay, well then let's wrap this bitch up so that we can try to end this thing. So Robbie, give me your 5 rating.
I think it's a fucking awesome film. Now, I've had the luxury of seeing it multiple times, and I think it gets better each and every time. I agree with everything Phable said, 100%. I agree with everything that everybody here said. I've just seen it the most. So I think I'm the most in love with it. I adore this film. It is something I think about definitely weekly, and I watch it at least once a year for sure. 5.69, you digs.
Oh yeah.
Hell yeah. Missing Link, my brother. What's your rating out of 5?
And when I compare this to Burial Ground, I don't mean it as an insult, but it's really it's the I feel like I had started at the bottom, and then we go to the top, it's a good contrast. But that being said, this was not that film at all, which I was kind of like, man, that's gonna have elements of that, even it didn't. So I was very shocked by that. Um, I do understand Fable's gripes about the plot, because I'm big on story myself. But I think that with my instance, the visuals and there's just like the production, the set design was and the music, especially the music, such a character as we were saying, that was enough to kind of like carry me through. Like I said, where the dialogue didn't necessarily work sometimes. But that being said, I was really impressed, honestly. I do have to watch this at night because I watched this during the day. I want to see how that night experience is. But I will give this a 4 out of 5. Just I was expecting some barrier ground and it impressed me, so I got respect for that. So I give it a 4 out of 5 with room to grow.
Hell yeah, man. A 4 out of 5, your first watch. For a dude that isn't you're necessarily cup of tea, I'm pretty fucking happy with a 4 out of 5. I'm glad you enjoyed it that much. Phable, my brother, where you at on it?
All right. Well, Steph is right. This is 100 times better than Burial Ground. 100%. But I kind of wish I watched this first. Because if I would have watched this first, I probably would have went down the rabbit hole further and maybe gained an appreciation that Robbie has, that Allison has. So I see Allison loves the movie. Inja, she loves the movie. I kind of wish I would have started here, because then I could have been like, Burial Ground is real shit.
That's what I was saying that night, man.
Like, holy crap, this is trash.
I mean, I think we all said it. Well,
but it does leave me wanting to watch it again, right? And that says a lot. That says a lot. Because there's a lot of cult movies that people love that I've seen that I'd be like, I don't get it, I don't understand it. But this one leaves a spark. It does. It gets you interested. Whether it's beautifully shot, it's beautifully shot. This is great. Set pieces, set design. I don't know if any of this was built or any of this is on location, but whatever it was,
almost all of it is sets. Almost all of it's a set.
Wow.
With a little bit of live locations.
Yeah, you impressed me even more. That hotel in the beginning of the movie, or that apartment building, that gave me Shining vibes, right? The way Shining structure is, how it's like so, I don't know, there's something otherworldly about it, and at the same time old about it, right? Ancient. Which is the same feeling I got from the music, which I never got to talk about the music, but the music, it's got that modern horror sensibility, but it also has that tribal shit going on with the screaming and the voices and the banging of the sticks, like you guys said, the congas, the drums, which is primordial fear, right? Like that's where it comes from, a deep past, this evil. And I like that. So tone, atmosphere, the way it looks, stuff like that, interesting characters, but the story just falls too flat for me. So I'm gonna say 3 with room to grow.
Hell yeah. I'll take it. Burno?
Yeah, I was gonna say I thought we lost. Vernon.
I think we
Poor
did.
Bruno.
Hells yeah. That's what there's room to grow. You just can you guys hear me? Am I here? Fuck. Can you hear me? Am I here?
You're here. You might want to. It seems like we might lose you.
The only one left to rate the film is Vernon.
Am I?
We hear you. We hear you. Oh, poor guy. Poor guy.
Fuck.
I love how we only hear him when he's like,
Oh
fuck.
my god.
Burn diggity.
You can hear me? I am here.
Yeah.
How here am I?
You're a little delayed, but
Hurry the fuck up and
25%.
say some shit and get the fuck out of here. That's what I'm gonna do.
Yeah.
Can you guys hear me? I'm